Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Whoa, caught me a little off guard there. I was daydreaming, which I guess something that we all do. Excuse me for that pregnant pause. Looks a little clearer out there today, but I understand the air is not good. Again, this is apparently something that we will see more and more and more of as the earth turns tinder dry. I mean, anybody who, this is such un-Pittsburgh-like weather, seeing sun, blue skies, no rain. And I know that a lot of people are reveling in it. It's creeping me out. And it's also really stressing the plants. I can't imagine we're not far from being in a drought. God. Anyway, how you doing? Good morning. June 7th, 2023. I'm Lynn Cullen, here to, edify, bore, annoy, and or waste some time with you. The news about the PGA, the PGA and LIV, the Saudi Golf, it broke during the show, toward the end of the show yesterday, and I know Susan and I both our immediate reaction was total shock. I mean, I remember even saying, could this be true? It seems so unbelievable. And like so much these days, that which seems unbelievable is, it's true. It's true. And my initial reaction remains my current reaction, and I do understand it is shared by a lot of people. I really feel for, I feel for a lot of people here. For fans of professional golf who have a moral core, because it would make it more difficult to enjoy your watching your pastime that you love. We mentioned my mother is one. She will have golf on endlessly. So I grew up with that. I mean, it's the most boring game. It makes baseball look fast-paced. I mean, I think a lot of people have it on, they can fall asleep to it. Not sure. But, wow. This is, what's remarkable about it is what we don't know. Why? What the hell? I mean, obviously, money has a lot to do with it. But this came about so suddenly. The fact is that you and I learned about it at the same time that some of the world's biggest professional golfers did. They didn't have any heads up either. So there were a lot of people in shock all over the world about it. And none of this would be, of much interest to me at all, except for the Saudis. Because Saudi Arabia is a vile nation. I'm not saying all Saudi Arabians are vile. I'm saying the nation is vile. And it's also rich as hell. And so it turns out that rich as hell trumps, more on that later, trumps So the Saudis are using their money to buy into pretty much anything they want. I mean, they would tell you that it is true. Everybody has their price. That is something I have always said is not true. It might be true for most people, but it's not necessarily true. Although, boy, yay. I'll tell you who's just thrilled and who is, and as I said, Trump. Good God. He was shut out. His golf courses pretty much shut out of PGA tournaments, costing him a lot of money. Well, he'll be right back in the mix now. When he became president, where was the first country he went to? Believe me, no other American president would ever have chosen as their first trip abroad to go to the blood-stained country of Saudi Arabia, but that's where Donald went right away. Because where the money is where that grifter is going. And I mean, the minute he was out of office, literally the minute son-in-law Jared Kushner gets a check for $2 billion from, by the way, the same place that the PGA just sold its soul to. The Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. The guy who heads that fund will now be the chairman of this new professional golf thing. Don't governments have anything to say about this kind of unholy alliance? I mean, I know the PGA is under some kind of investigation by the Justice Department. Man, the Justice Department, that is some busy people these days. And also, LIV, the Saudis, were being sued by the PGA, and the Saudis didn't want that stuff to go forward because they were being sued in a situation much like Fox News and Dominion, where through pre-trial discovery, they would have had to turn over otherwise private documents that, in fact, they would not have wanted to become public. So there's a lot of feeling that this sudden marriage was an effort to avoid embarrassing disclosure. And God knows, I'm sure both entities, the PGA and certainly the Saudis, have a lot of skeletons, as we know, in their closet. We can name some of the skeletons in the Saudis' closet. So this just stinks to high heaven. And I wonder how, like is his name Moynihan or Monahan or something, who heads the PGA, how does he have the chutzpah to go from vilifying these people, acknowledging their complicity with 9/11, acknowledging their responsibility for the brutal murder of a Washington Post journalist, right, Khashoggi. And literally, now they're best of friends. How do people how are people able to do that and face the world, having shown their hypocrisy and their lack of any moral standing? One of the first things, if you read the agreement, I mean, this thing happened so fast. This entity that now exists, the PGA plus LIV, it doesn't even have a name. So, one of the first things, if you read the letter that was sent to all members of, I suppose, to all the golfers, is that all litigation between the two will stop. It's done. So, and then, of course, there's the end game of what the Saudis are up to here, buying what? Some kind of way in to the civilized world. The Saudis just purchased an English soccer team, didn't they? And I think they're about to sign are they signing Messi? They're just going to buy their way into the world. The world keeps saying yes. But what's to keep them from now? I mean, they will essentially control professional golf now. They will. The Saudis. How do you watch that shit? And I feel for the players who have some principles. How do they now? I mean, that's what they've spent their whole lives being able to make a good living doing this, playing this game. And now they have to play it and get checks written by Saudi oil and blood money. So, anyway, hey, by the way, after the Saudis paid off Kushner, the $2 billion, like pretty much the day after Trump left office, vowing he, had won, the Saudis, same fund, also wrote a check for $1 billion to Trump's Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin. Now, this is the kind of thing. And what is media talking about? The media talks about, like amplifies this crapola from the Republicans about somehow Biden and the Biden family being corrupt. You cannot come close to the blatant corruption of this Trump crime family. Just blatant. And I don't know, do they wear media down to the point that people just stop even acknowledging it? Here's something I thought that was, I'm sorry, that was me. I didn't mean to do that. Here is something that I wanted to share with you that was written by Scott Van Pelt. Is he a quarterback? Who's Scott Van Pelt? Anyway, he's got a blue, this is, it was a tweet, and I just thought it was just brilliant. Because he calls out the total hypocrisy of how the PGA was shaming its players. How could you possibly accept this blood money from the Saudis and leave us for this despicable LIV? And Scott Van Pelt wrote, so you preach loyalty to a tour and convince guys not to take 8 and 9 figure deals based in part on that loyalty and in part on the source of the money. Then those guys find out on Twitter that you took the very same money. It's exactly what happened. Players were turning down tens of millions, hundreds of millions, I think, of dollars being waved in front of them by the Saudis. And because the very same PGA heads who announced their shotgun marriage yesterday, I really, hypocrisy at this level, so public, is just mind-blowing to me. Yeah, Milton writes, Tiger Woods should sue the PGA, because he passed up a $780 million signing bonus with LIV to remain loyal to the PGA. It's just amazing. Despicable. Ugh. I have a caller. Go ahead.
Hey, Lynn, this is Beth calling. You know what? My wife and I feel like just kicked in the gut today because we are rabid golf fans. And the thing is, let me just tell you, with Scott Van Pelt, he's one of the anchors for ESPN, and he's the one who did the incredible coverage when Damar Hamlin went down, and just said He literally said, "Look, we are not dealing in speculation. We are dealing with what we know, and that's it." And I thought, you know what? This is the way news used to be. And he treated it like a news story. And I have a lot of respect since that incident for him. And he's also, I think he also came up, he was trying to get on the PGA tour as well before he got into broadcasting.
So he was a golfer?
He was a golfer, I believe.
Okay.
I'm about 80% sure.
Okay. I knew I knew the name, but I didn't know from whence it came.
As far as the lifting, first of all, our first reaction was, what the hell do the Saudis have on Pat Moynihan, number one? For this to have happened.
Really?
There had to be something. I mean, you know what? The Saudis already had their hands kind of in the tour anyway. When you look at the investment money they own in, let's say, like Saitai, and Saitai supports how many PGA, golf?
Wait. What's Saitai? I don't know.
Citibank.
Oh, okay.
They're one of the largest controlling factors in Citibank. And when you look at the Saudi model, especially under this filthy piece of shit, MBS, they've really switched away from oil, knowing at some point that fund is going to dry up. And they have been buying massively into global companies. So this is just another one.
They're going to own the friggin' world. The rich money just it's becoming so concentrated. It's unbelievable. Okay,
it absolutely is. But the thing is, we agree. We felt awful for the golfers, first of all, who stayed loyal to the tour.
Yes.
We were actually, I hate to say it, we actually couldn't stand a lot of the golfers beforehand, went over to LIV. So it was like, hey, it's now a better product for us on the weekend watching, because we're actually seeing the players we really like. Those guys fell on their sword supporting, what was right. And the other thing, too, is, LIV didn't even have a .2 on the CW network. if you said, look, we're taking LIV over, but in the sense of calling it a merger is more vile to me than anything else.
Yeah. So you would think, I mean, looking at it, that the PGA had a huge hand. They had the audience. They have the right. So what? You're right. What did LIV, other than their money, have on the PGA? And
for this to be announced shortly before the U.S. Open as well, and the way it was done, I mean, there are so many things here that are incredibly, for such a large. I mean, I hate to say it, they're a multinational company. Yeah. I've never seen a multinational company handle a merger this way before.
No, it's a shotgun. It's just out of the, what the heck? Boy, I'll tell you, you're talking about reporters, good reporters. Man, there's a lot of scrambling going on right now trying to untangle this.
Well, let's hope it's someone at the Washington Post is a nice FU to the Saudis for what happened with Khashoggi. That they really put some serious funds here to try to figure out what the heck happened here. And I have to say, we've had the debate now. Do we even continue to watch it? Like, of course, because you'll feel a little bit dirty watching it. Absolutely.
Because as your eyeballs, as you know, will now increase Saudi money.
Yeah,
and give them credibility.
Right, for an organization that would, put my wife and I in jail. It's, we've already started to have this like moral debate. What do we do? I mean, we know we're not definitely ever going to go to a PGA Tour course again or a PGA store again or any of those things. Absolutely.
What happens with corporate sponsorship? So how do the corporations, not that I give a damn that they keep getting themselves in this, into these sort of political arguments or moral arguments. What is the right thing to do? No matter what they do, someone's going to be, mad at them. But what do they do?
But see, that's the thing, Lynn. Let's say, for example, and I don't know if they own it. Let's say John Deere, for example, who's one of the major, they host an event. Let's say they say, you know what, we're no longer associating with the PGA Tour. It's not going to be hard to find some company like a Citibank or some other company that the Saudis have heavily invested in that will now pick that up. The other thing I'm sure that will happen right now, as well as anybody pulling out, guess what? They're now going to be held at Trump properties. But don't forget, the PGA said we're not going to, go to Doral or anywhere else again. So now it brings that vile creature back into the fray. I just feel bad for the golfers. We had this debate last night of the golfers that stayed with the PGA. They're set up as an association. Like, it's not like they're a league, like baseball, football, hockey. Would there be some way of them to be able to unionize? And I started thinking, because they're forming this whole new organization, I think it makes them harder for them to even try to do a union organization.
They could, though. I mean, can you imagine if they could get enough of them? Here's where solidarity is so important. I mean, if all these guys, PGA, not the LIV guys that already went over, if they said, we ain't playing. I mean, I can't imagine people do.
That is more of a, I mean, if you've worked so hard for your dream to now say, I am never going to play professional golf.
Yeah, but do you have but does the PGA then have a product? The Saudi Arabian PGA, do they have a product if all they've got are, this small group that already sold their souls?
Yeah, but
and all the other golfers refuse to.
They may have sold their souls. We have to remember. I mean, golf itself, it's a pretty conservative group of folks. And I think most golfers, they're more about the money, a bit about they become more socially conscious, I think, as they do better on the tour. Those that are still trying to come up, I kind of think they have a lot of Republican ideals in there. So it's it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Oh, well, geez.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, no. The whole world is just going in the wrong direction, guys.
And furthermore, if you're a golf club in this country, the big thing is who's your PGA Tour pro at the course? Bringing it to a regional thing.
I don't know. Oh, I just, it's sickening.
It is. I'm
sick about it.
I'm tired of politics getting into my sports.
I've seen a lot of things on Twitter where people, very creative people, have them like redoing the PGA logo. Have you seen any of those?
No.
The logo is a silhouette of a guy swinging, right? And instead of the golf club, one of them, it was a bone saw.
Excellent.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people will keep resisting or show outrage against the product like we're going to do.
And just to be clear, this does not involve the LPGA?
That I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that one.
Okay.
We know they've over the past couple of years the LPGA has taken definitely different. They're taking more of a corporate model. I mean, for example, they pulled out of the dinosaurs now in Texas. Come on, and renamed the Chevron Classic or something. So they've definitely kind of had a change in model. They now have a brand new Phenom, which is making it incredibly interesting to watch. Yes.
This young woman, geez.
I mean, she's doing things.
She's going to be like Tiger Woods.
Oh, I think she has the possibility of surpassing him. I mean, to come on the tour and she won her first match. Tiger came in at his first one like in 36 or 60 some place.
So what's her name? Yang? Is her name Yang?
Yes.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been reading about her. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, there's that. God help.
Thank you for letting me vent.
No, it just seems these days that everything that gives the few things left that give you unabashed pleasure will still, somehow be tainted. Like the Saudis reached into your life, and the PGA, acquiesced.
Yeah.
And now you are conflicted about something that gave you such pleasure.
Yeah, and just completely, you know what? It would take us away. So whatever you were dealing with in life, it was a nice little just mental escape. Yeah. I'm going to cheer for this guy. It's a great backstory, whatever it is.
Right.
It kind of just gave you that mental outlet. That same thing won't be there.
Speaking of that, I just want to say, since you're here, that I read something the other day that I hadn't thought about before. That gay couples, is it safe for you, let's say, to go on a safari in Kenya or in Uganda where you can be, killed? And they were saying that there are travel agencies that cater to the gay community who are still promising, yes, you can go to Egypt is another. Yes, we can get you to the pyramids. Yes, we can do Saudi Arabia or whatever and keep you out of jail and alive. Can you imagine that the world? I mean, this is where the world is now.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone back. We're going back instead of continuing forward. Unfortunately,
right, absolutely.
We've had this discussion. Would we go to countries where we know that, you know what, we're really not liked? No, because if our little bit of an economic protest, we're not going to spend our dollars in your country. As much as it has been a life dream of mine to see the pyramids, it's not going to, we're not going to do it. We will definitely go and support cultures and countries that, will at least recognize that we're a couple. and not having to hide it and whatever else. And also, I have to say, Lynn, I didn't get to listen to your show live yesterday, but thank you so much for bringing up the Gina Davis.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And
yeah,
stuff that. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, you. Nice to hear from you always. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Milton is just sending me something that I was going to be my next topic. I learned of it when I woke up. I guess it was breaking news at about, I don't know. Anyway, this is sort of an inside baseball story to me, so I haven't been talking about it, but it has to do with the chief executive at CNN, the guy who took over and altered the lineup and tried to make it more moderate and all of that kind of stuff. He's out. He lasted longer than the Prime Minister of England trusts. He made it to, I think, about 13 months or something. I don't know. He's out because CNN, since he's come, has been going down the toilet. But this is the culmination of a story that, again, I didn't bring it up because it just seemed, I guess because I'm in or spent most of my professional life in broadcasting, it felt like an inside baseball story to me, and I'm not so sure how much that resonates with you. But the morale, the backbiting, the leaking, the unbelievable distress of people working at CNN. And then this amazing takedown story came out in my favorite magazine, The Atlantic. And I get The Atlantic, so it came to me, and I started reading it. I had no idea. I was reading like an hour later. I could, how long is this thing? But it was all about him, the CEO, Chris Licht. I think that's how it's pronounced. Chris Licht, who gave this reporter, whose name is now escaping me, who gave this reporter incredible access to him. And the reporter, using simply, it's not like he lied or anything. It is the most devastating profile of this guy. And there was no way after you read it that you thought he could keep his job. And everybody couldn't wait. He was silent when it came out. And then I think it was Monday. He had called a meeting at 9:00 for the CNN family. And reports were that he apologized to them all for drawing attention away from the product and onto himself, and how, he still was trying to cheerlead it, and it was going to be okay, and he would redouble his efforts, and there would never be anything. It was all going to be about them, and he was praising his staff and blah, 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 blah. It's out. The jerk who tasked him, who hired him and gave him the assignment to make CNN drab and to get strong opinion off their air and to put a lot of MAGA types on their air, is the chief executive of Warner Brothers / Discovery. Are there antitrust laws in this country anymore? I don't know the names of any of these corporations anymore. It's like this, merge with that, merge with this, merge with that. And these are the so-called capitalists that believe in a free market system. No, they believe in there's one winner. He who gobbles up everything. Okay, so the chief executive of Warner Brothers / Discovery, that through all of their, acquisitions, acquired CNN. They're the ones who got rid of the one before, Zucker, and brought in Chris Licht. The guy's name is David Zaslav. And it's on him, although he's the one who is quoted now, and I thank Milton for sending this, who said, I love it when the way they do this. I met with Chris, and he will be leaving CNN. Boy, that's about as terse. It's not even, he didn't even bother to say to spend more time with his family. He didn't even thank them for, running their ratings into the ground as per instruction from the guy who just fired him, David Zaslav. Ugh. Well, I'll tell you this. There's probably a lot of joy at CNN today, knowing he's gone. But who the hell will he be? Who the hell will he be followed by? Because Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery still want this milquetoast network. Well, Don Lemon's laughing. I wonder about Caitlin Collins. I mean, she was I wonder if this will impact her. I have no idea. And you know what? I don't care. I have barely watched them. But I've barely watched any of them. I've gotten into, I admit it, MSNBC from 4 to 6. I don't know why. Because I like her. Can't even think of her name now. I like, she's so smart. Anyway, whatever. There you go. Wow. And Art, thank you very much. That Van Pelt thought he was a quarterback. Well, there was a Van Pelt quarterback. You're right. You're absolutely right, Art. I must have been thinking about Alex Van Pelt, who was a Pitt quarterback. Didn't he know he went on and played with the NFL? I don't think he amounted to much, but didn't he? Anyway, so there's that. Oh, God. Another good quote I saw about this disgusting American Saudi embrace. Somebody wrote, Americans have been pretending to be friends of the Saudis for generations, ever since our love of cars met their oceans of oil. There it is. There it is. And the Saudis don't really care if you love them or are pretending to love them. Pretending is just fine. They don't miss any of the money. The money just keeps rolling in. It is some of what's being written on social media about this is funny, and as I said, some of the memes sort of marry 9/11 with PGA now are really brilliant. Editorial cartoonists are licking their chops right now. There's good stuff for them. I was looking at the obituary of Françoise Gillot. How it's pronounced. She was one of Pablo Picasso's mistresses. She died. She lived to be 101. She died in Manhattan yesterday. And there's a famous, I've always loved this picture, which the New York Times put on its front page today, of her. She has to be about 24, 25. She's just beautiful, beautiful young woman. Walking on a Mediterranean beach in a dress and this wonderful big hat, big chunky necklace. And behind her, carrying this huge umbrella, a fringed umbrella, is Pablo Picasso, smiling. You don't see a lot of him, with this sort of, he was 40 years older than her when they took up. She was 22. And, but I've always loved that picture. I've loved the sense of her as, reveling in having conquered this man. That's how I saw it. As he shaded her. He served as the umbrella holder for her. Anyway, the other interesting thing about the obit is she's the only, they say, the only one of his many mistresses and wives who said to him, "I'm out of here." And she was still quite young when she did. So I think, as a matter of fact, if I'm doing the math right, she would have been in her early 30s. And when she bore him 2 children. The daughter, Paloma, is somebody who also became a celebrity. But yeah, and she herself was an artist of some note. Her work is in the Met, in the Museum of Modern Art, whatever. But the odd thing, though, that really struck me is how she must have been something, in that in her life, she was, with Pablo Picasso. And then she married another time or two, I believe. And her last husband was Jonas Salk. From Pablo Picasso to Jonas Salk. And it made me think, wow, married to like 2 sort of world-changing men in her life. If not married, she was never married to Picasso, but with him. And then I started thinking, so who of those 2 men, Jonas Salk and Pablo Picasso, if only one could live, if you had to choose, one of them will enter the world and live, and the other will not. Of those men, who do you think made the largest contribution? I guess that's the way you would work it, right? The largest contribution to humanity. Now, I don't know. I would say Salk, because I know Jonas Salk saved millions of lives. That is, if people are still deigning to take his vaccine. I would pick Jonas Salk, but I can see where somebody would say that Picasso, that somehow I'm not appreciating the majesty, the importance of great art. Yeah, but still, I'm going with Salk. I'm just throwing that out to you. She had them both. And yes, little Tony, you reminded me of another piece of good news I saw earlier, and that is Chuck Todd, who I never watch. I cannot stomach him. Chuck Todd is going to be gone from Meet the Press, right? I never watched that. I never watched the Sunday show, ever. I haven't watched them in probably 50 years. But I never could stomach Chuck Todd. And he's gone from that. I don't think he's gone everything. I don't know. Good riddance. Replaced by a woman of color, which is good, Kristen Welker, who's smart as a whip and will be much better. I'm going to say a word I've never said before, interlocutor. Is that word right? A much better interviewer. So there it is. My God. Now, hang on. I've got something here. Speaking of Alex, I'm helping. Oh my God. Hey, by the way, I spent yesterday reading a book because one of the authors is going to be on the show tomorrow. And there are 4 authors of this book because it is a compilation of, I'll call them dispatches from 4 different cities over the course of, I believe, February 2020 to November 2020. And the idea behind this book is, I guess, came out of the Columbia Journalism Review. And the idea was to look at 4 disparate American cities who didn't necessarily have a lot in common, but one of the things they had in common was their local newspapers were either dead, gone, or dying. And 2020, stop and think, was a very consequential presidential election year. And the idea was to look at how that impacts residents of a community that no longer has its trusted source of news. How does one get information? What does that portend in terms of how people may in fact end up voting? And the 4 cities that were chosen were, I have to admit I didn't read all of the city things. It was Bowling Green, Virginia, and Macon, Georgia, McAllen, Texas, and McKeesport, Pennsylvania. And obviously it was the McKeesport, Pennsylvania that caught my eye. And the name, it's a fascinating book. Of course, the thing that ended up happening is that the story they thought they would be writing changed, because February of 2020, something happened that upended the whole idea. It was called a pandemic. So the story now is not just a story about what happens in a community that doesn't have its newspaper. Actually, it shows even more so. What happened? You've got now this unprecedented pandemic and this presidential election that is so fraught. The possible re-election of Donald Trump. So it's interesting reading, and ultimately, I will say, as so much is these days, dispiriting. I'll just say that one of the chapter 19, just the title of chapter 19 will tell you some of why it feels so negative. The title is How Facebook Has Undermined Communal Conversation in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. That's just one chapter. And it is so true. It is a very, the author I will have on is a guy who was a reporter in McKeesport, born, raised, reporter in McKeesport forever, knows it inside out, worked for the McKeesport Daily News, which no longer exists, which was gobbled up by Richard Mellon's Scaife. And then that went kaplooey. And then McKeesport doesn't have a paper. His name is Jason Toggier, and he's an excellent writer and an excellent observer of what has happened to McKeesport. And it's something. And those of us around here have a pretty good sense of I don't think devastation is too big a word. What has happened to those Mon Valley communities when the steel industry pulled out? It's when I came to Pittsburgh as that was happening. First years here, oh my God, the news. It was so awful all the time. So awful. So many people displaced. McKeesport lost 2/3 of its population. And I guess, so technology is a big part of the problem. Technology killed the newspaper. And it was thought that it would provide a way for people to be closer in touch and would create something called citizen journalism. And it didn't quite kind of not happen. And instead, what it created was Facebook, Twitter, the kind of stuff that trafficked in disinformation, misinformation, confusion, and division. where local newspapers did quite the opposite. So I feel that Pittsburgh is in this situation now too, where we essentially don't have a newspaper. And it makes having a community very, very difficult. At exactly the time when we're desperate for community. So that's he'll be on tomorrow, coming in around 10:30, just so as you know. And I wish it were a happier subject, but guys, happy subjects just don't seem to be around these days. Does somebody have one? I will kill for a happy subject. Well, as little Tony said, Todd is off. Chris Licht is out, but you know. Do I have time to do? Very quickly, I had read a piece by a guy named Ron Curry Jr. Maybe a week or so ago. And he's a screenwriter, so he's on strike. But he talks about his father. And how his sense of what unions were comes from the experience of his father. And it was very powerful to me. His dad was a firefighter and an EMT, I believe in maybe Detroit. I don't know why I'm thinking Detroit, but I'm thinking Detroit. He was a decorated combat veteran, and he had a heart attack when he was pretty young. And that changed everything in his life. He was alive, but he couldn't really do his work anymore. And it turned out that he had been paying into insurance to supplement what his pension would be. And he got screwed. The son says the corporate jackals who ran the insurance scam he paid into for decades refused to pay him after he became incapacitated because they said he had his heart attack while he was at the fire station. And so that wasn't for them to deal with. That was for workers' comp. So all of that stuff he thought was coming to him in that kind of situation. And the son writes, and they gave not 1/4 of a damn that the man had been within a hairbreadth of dying. Of course not. Oh, at the same time, the corporate jackals who held the mortgage on the house that they lived in, they too came calling. And he said his dad somehow scraped together a few months worth of mortgage payments, but the bank or the mortgage company sent the checks back uncashed, saying that if he couldn't pay the full amount that was overdue, they would not accept any of it. And they took his house. And so this guy writes, so my father, barely more than 50 years old, with only 20% of his heart still working, lost the modest life he put together through tireless labor over decades, and had to move with my mother into my aunt's house. His union, the Teamsters, tried to intercede on his behalf, but they came up short too. And the Sun says this, I learned two things as I helplessly watched all this. First, only a sucker bets on a future more distant than his next breath. And second, the difference between being shaken down illegally and being shaken down legally is that instead of going to prison, the crooks in neckties get stock bonuses and gold Rolexes and hearty pats on the back for a job well done. Because using fine print and loopholes and the tectonic grind of the legal process to cheat working people is as American as a Norman Rockwell painting. Now I'll leave you with just one more word of his. Unions, imperfect though they may be, are the only entities that have ever provided an effective counterbalance to the corporate rapaciousness that victimized my father. A strike is not a fight at all, but rather a collective assertion of our dignity. It's not about money, except insofar as in America, money equals respect. We're tired of having to fight like animals, simply to be treated like human beings. That's a little memo from America 2023 in the throes of rapacious capitalism. See you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.